Hello and welcome into this week's ARCA Menard Series Rewind show right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, we are currently in our hashtag Race to 1K. If you haven't subscribed already, consider going down below and doing that for me. It is free to do. The quicker we get to 1,000 subscribers, the quicker YouTube will let us do mobile live streaming from the track, which will vastly improve both the quality and quantity of coverage we're able to give you when we're able to get back to the track. So let's talk about today's third Toledo race of the 2020 season on the ARCA Menard Series schedule. The fourth overall for ARCA, as there was an East race at Toledo as well, but the third of the main ARCA schedule after doing a doubleheader there a few weeks ago. About what you'd expect for a Toledo race, about what we've come to expect from Toledo races this season. There wasn't a lot of excitement in this race. There was a little bit of racing throughout the pack, a little bit of bumping and banging and typical short track racing, but not quite to the level that you would expect from other races. Last week at Lebanon, we had so much great short track action. This week at Toledo, it was a lot more tame. Not as much going on, not as many battles for the lead. It just was a lot more tame than Lebanon was. Doesn't mean it was a bad race, but it was a lot more tame. Not nearly as much going on in this race. We had storylines, though. The battle for the championship heating up as it has been for the past couple of weeks. That battle between Brett Holmes and Michael Self. Michael Self, again, having one of those days that just was a little bit off for him. He battled back in the end of the race. The points battle, though, still very tight after this race. So let's go ahead and look at your caution report for this race. 4 caution flags for a total of 28 laps in the Royal Truck and Trailer 200. First one came at lap 56 as Chase Cabry lost the right front tire and went straight into the foam in turn 1. 2 of those, of course, being the scheduled breaks for the race at laps 76 and 151. The only other caution for an incident came at lap 87 as Drew Dollar got turned in turn number 3 by Parker Retzlaff. 2 leaders in this race. Chandler Smith led 35 laps, and Sam Mayer by far led the most laps in this race at 165. Remember, Sam Mayer swept the doubleheader at Toledo a few weeks ago. Given that logic, you would think this would have been a very Sam Mayer-esque race, and you would be correct in assuming that. Sam Mayer led 165 of the 200 laps on his way to the victory in the Royal Truck and Trailer 200. Very dominating win for Sam Mayer. Had a pretty good challenge from Chandler Smith in this race, but it wasn't enough from the driver of that 20 car. Just was a skosh off of what Sam Mayer had in this race, and there really wasn't much he could do. Whenever Sam Mayer wanted to drive away, essentially he could. Most of the time, it seemed like he was just playing with the field and just not going as hard as he could to try and save his equipment in case he had to go hard. So I don't think we really saw everything that Sam Mayer had in this race. He has become very good at Toledo Speedway, as we have seen over the past couple visits to this track. There's not a lot stopping Sam Mayer when we stop at Toledo now. Chandler Smith did come home in the second position in this race, though Ty Gibbs a little off today from what we've become accustomed to seeing out of him. Still a solid third place finish, though. It's always good when you can say a driver is a little off of what you're accustomed to seeing, and they still finished on the podium. So kudos to Ty Gibbs for just being that strong of a challenger that when he finishes third, we say he's a little bit off. Brett Holmes came home in a solid 4th place, and Taylor Gray rounded out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Haley Deegan in 6th, Michael Self 7th, Parker Retzlaff 8th, Mason Diaz 9th, and Nick Sanchez in the 10th position. Now notice, we came into this race with a 1-point gap. Michael Self led over Brett Holmes. Now you see here Brett Holmes finished in 4th and Michael Self finished in 7th. So I'm not going to spoil it for you, but if you can infer from context clues, that might give you a hint as to what we will see on the point standings coming up here in a couple of minutes. Final page for the results today, 11th through 19th. Justin Carroll with a strong 11th place finish. Drew Dollar, after his incident, came home in 15th, and Chase Cabry landed in 16th after his incident. But that's your results from the the Royal Truck and Trailer 200 from Toledo. Let's take a gander at your point standings following this race. With 5 races remaining in the 2020 ARCA Menard Series schedule, and Michael Self has officially lost the points lead now. Brett Holmes leads the standings now by 2 points, 2 markers over that driver of the 25 car. I've been saying it for weeks now. This championship battle is just heating up. We're going to see so much more of this as we go right down to the wire. We've got good tracks for Michael Self coming up. Pretty much every track for Michael Self is a good track, but Bristol could be a great equalizer this week. Neither one of them has turned a lap at Bristol. We've got Winchester coming up. That hasn't been on the ARCA schedule for a while. We've got Memphis coming up. That's a big unknown. We've got Springfield coming up where Michael Self won last year, and then we've got Kansas coming up where Self finished second last year and won 2 years before, 2017. Don't just go ahead and write this championship off as a Brett Holmes championship at this point. There's some strong tracks coming up for Michael Self, and there's a lot of unknowns coming up through the rest of the season. A lot of tracks that these drivers have no notes on, have no idea what to expect from these races. This championship battle, I keep preaching on it every single week, is going to go right down to the wire, and we're going to have a superb championship battle as we go down through these final weeks of the season. We're about a month away from the end of the season at Kansas, and we've got 5 races in that time period, 2 coming up in the next week. So this ARCA season is just getting fired up. The last quarter of this season is going to be jam-packed, it's going to be action-packed, and this championship battle is just heating up. We're about to see something great from this championship battle. Mark my words, this championship battle is going to go right down to the wire, and it's going to be one for the history books. Haley Deegan still sits in the 3rd spot, 49 points off the lead, and Drew Dollar there in 4th, lost more points after his wreck, 62 points off of the points lead. But that's your point standings following Toledo, and I believe that will do it for us on this ARCA Rewind show. 2 races coming up this week, as I mentioned, Bristol on Thursday and Winchester, the return of Winchester to the ARCA schedule on Saturday. Both of those, of course, we'll have watch parties for. If you're not already hanging out in the watch parties, you need to be. It's a fun time. We hang out, we talk about the race. We just have a fun time chatting it up with each other and keeping you informed on exactly what is happening in the race, if it happens to be a race that you can't watch, or you can just come out and watch it with us. That's always fun too, as we get to discuss the race in real time. Just so many great pros to hanging out in that watch party. If you're not doing it already, you need to be. Of course, the next one, like I said, is Thursday for Bristol, and then again Saturday for Winchester. Of course, rewind shows for both of those. NASCAR Heat 5, as usual, coming up on Wednesday at 8 p.m. as we continue our career mode there through both the Xfinity and the Truck Series. So we got lots of fun coming up for you this week on Racing News Now. If you're not subscribed already, definitely, since we're in our hashtag Race to 1K, you need to be. Go down below, hit that subscribe button for me, ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. And as always, want to thank our Patreon supporter, Regional Manager William Holmes. Thank you, as always, for your support. It is much appreciated. If you would like to be a patron of RNN, the link is down below in the description, patreon.com/racingnewsnow. It is much appreciated, but definitely not required by any means. But that's going to do it for this one, so at that, this has been the ARCA Menard Series Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.